All right, welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Johnny Walker versus Paul Craig. That's how you say it, Craig. I'm going to call him Craig, though, for the rest of the video. Paul Craig is 35 years old, 16-5-1. He's giving up 3 inches of height and 6 inches of reach to Johnny Walker, who is 30 years old and 19-7 as a pro. Craig, he's a submission specialist. Submission specialist, very deadly, specifically off his back. Like I said when I was talking about Glover Teixeira, he's a better submission artist than Glover Teixeira, and he's a better submission artist than just about anybody. He's not the best overall grappler, but as far as a submission threat, and particularly from his back, he's as good as it gets, Paul Craig. And in today's MMA, it makes him a unique threat. So I always like to see that style prevail. Nothing cooler than a submission from the guard. But he's up against it here. Johnny Walker's a killer. Paul Craig, I should say, let me get into his losses. He's got 5 losses. 3 are via KO, 1 via submission, which is insane, and 1 via decision. The submission came the 3rd round to Jimmy Crute, which is such a feather in his cap. But I want to say that's not on the table here. Even if Johnny Walker does win via submission, which is possible, it'd be in the 1st round, as all 3 of Johnny Walker's submissions are, including the last one of Akutalaba. But if Johnny Walker wins, it's probably a knockout, which Craig has suffered 3 knockouts, all in the UFC, to Tyson Pedro, Khalil Roundtree, and Alonzo Menafield. Now, those are 3 very hard hitters, but still, they all got him out of there, all in round 1, and I've got it in my head, that's his weakness, and you should have it in your head too. If Paul Craig loses 5 fights in the next few years, as I always say, at least 3 of them are going to be knockouts. Now, Johnny Walker is the guy that can make that happen. He's got 19 wins, as I said, 15 knockouts out of his 19 wins, 3 submissions, and just 1 decision. Of his 18 finishes, I think, 14 of them come in round 1. 13 of his 15 knockouts come in round 1. That's when he gets it done, and that's where he made his bones in the UFC, knocking out those 3 guys in a row. Justin Ledet, Khalil Roundtree, and Misha Serkinov, all in violent fashion, especially that fucking Roundtree knockout. But Johnny Walker, as capable as he is of exploiting that Paul Craig weakness, and he is more than capable of doing so, he's got a weak chin himself, which, will cost him in the future. The same thing I said about Paul Craig being knocked out, you could say about Johnny Walker. If you told me he suffered 5 losses in the future, I'd say, were 3 of them knockouts? No? 5? Although if you've seen him fight, it could be like 7. There's 1 fight he lost right before he got to the UFC, or not right before, but, sometime before he got to the UFC, where he was knocked out like 5 times in the fight against the guy Henrique. And, but as far as Johnny Walker being submitted goes, he was submitted once. It was almost 10 years ago, and it was to Klidson Abreu, who's over in the PFL now, was in the UFC for a cup of coffee. He actually was defeated by one of those body shots to Jamal Hill, even though it was overturned. But still, he's a very capable top-game submission grappler. Really good guy. He's the guy that took out, what's his name over in the PFL? Whatever. Hainan, I think. Hainan Ferreira or whatever. But anyway, Johnny Walker is my pick here. I've got Johnny Walker knocking out Paul Craig. I think it happens in round 1. Walker's got incredible reach here, and if Paul Craig, finds himself playing games, lacing up legs and whatever, he's going to leave himself exposed, and Walker will be able to reach his chin a lot more easily than others would. So I'm taking Johnny Walker here. I think, of course, on the feet, he's a much better striker. Paul Craig, I don't think he's got 1 standing knockout. It's all a means to an end with him, the striking. Johnny Walker could put Paul Craig away, but I think if he fights smart, he's not going to be going for flying knees and really putting himself out there. He's going to be fighting more patiently and maybe even getting more aggressive when Paul Craig finds himself relaxed, again, in one of those spots, lacing a leg or whatever. But, getting a little too comfortable playing jiu-jitsu. And that's where I think Johnny Walker can hit him with reality, especially with those extra 6 inches. So I'm picking Johnny Walker. I've got him to win by knockout round 1, plus 200. and I've got him to win by knockout round 2 plus 400. That's my pick. I also played him in a parlay at minus 185, but I'd rather win the plus money on the parlays. I do think if he wins really any fight against anybody, it's a first round knockout. But we'll see what happens. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.